Welcome to CHTA Live, the Resilience Series, bringing you practical content to support strategies and solutions to guide your recovery plans. My name is Vanessa Ledesma, Acting CEO and Director General for the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association. Thank you for taking time to join us. Our topic today is Say Goodbye to the Off-Season, Strategies to Fill Empty Rooms. While international travel into the Caribbean moves towards recovery, approaching 75% of pre-pandemic levels, travel within the region has only recovered to an estimated 30% of pre-pandemic levels. Join us for a two-part session next week, where we will be discussing opportunities and challenges in restoring and growing this travel segment. Details available in our website. The biggest gathering of the tourism industry is coming together. Celebrating 40 years, Caribbean Travel Marketplace 2022 is scheduled for October 3rd to the 5th in Puerto Rico. If you have not renewed your CHTA membership, we invite you to do it now to access special savings for registration, which will be opening soon. To the CHTA members joining us today, we value your continued support and encourage you to maximize the resources and tools available to you. If your company is not a CHTA member, you are missing on valuable resources to support your business continuity. We need and want your involvement. Join the My CHTA community today by contacting us at membership@caribbeanhotelandtourism.com. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers for this session today, as well as our sponsors representing Sendine, Tina Markowitz, VP Digital Marketing, Media and Analytics, and Alex Moda, Director of Sales, Latam. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Vanessa. Really, it's a pleasure to be here. We can talk a little bit about some terms of the market and what can be done in terms of recovery after this crazy pandemic. I have like over 20 years experience in the market. I started my career in the airline industry, then I moved to a corporate travel industry, joined Couchman Travel. And then I was responsible to start up operations for Turico Holidays in Latam and also Ray Tiger. And I recently joined Sendine like last month, so I'm really fresh in the company, but really excited to be here today.
And I'm Tina Markowitz. I have been at Sendine for about 2 years, joined right before the pandemic started, so it's been a wild ride. And I lead the digital media and marketing and analytics teams here, so working with hotels and management companies all over the globe through this tough time and hopefully into better times going forward, which we will talk about today.
Very good. So the agenda that we have for today is the current landscape and demand trends, driving occupancy and non-room revenue, digital marketing and tactics and maximize reach and efficiency, effective ways to drive email and web conversations, and leverage loyalty, increase repeat guests, and of course at the end Q&A.
We can skip ourselves again. Since we've done
yeah.
Let's go right into current landscape.
Current landscape. Okay, so yeah, we can start talking about what happened in the last 2 years. Of course, everybody faced a lot of difficulties, and it was not easy when pandemic hits the world. First of all, we were driving like worldwide 65% occupancy, and then suddenly when the pandemic hits, it goes down to 7%. So it was a very devastating impact for the industry, not only in terms of the revenue, but also in terms of operations. We have a lot of furloughs and layoffs for employees, so this is really impacting the entire industry. Also, after the pandemics, we have like a lot of restrictions implemented by the government. So capacity restriction in the hotels, hotels had a lot of restrictions in terms of receiving guests. Of course, also we have a lot of travel restrictions. Airlines reduce the schedule for flights. So this impacting a lot, in what we saw in the market. Good things now that we are now recovering the pandemics. we have recently the Omicron virus, and we also going to show later how it also impact the numbers. And when you think now everything is okay, now we're going to be out of the pandemic, then we have a war that started in Europe. So we always have to face something, but we are in the industry, and we know that we need to be working to get what you're looking for is, of course, to attend well the guests. Good things that for 2023 have like good expectation numbers. Also we are talking with some hotels that are expecting the 19 numbers to be same that we're going to have like in quarter 4 this year. And so we are very expecting to get back normal numbers in the end of this year, and of course to 2023 are expecting to be very, very good numbers. And also there's a very good forecast for group business and events for next year. So good things that the industry is really recovering from the pandemic. We can talk about also involved guest expectations. Of course, with pandemics, a lot of guest behaviors have changed. They were stricter and visible health safety measures. They're looking for what hotels can provide in terms of safety measures, and this is one of the things that we really need to reinforce, is that hotels need to have this in a very perspective way, that the safety measures are in the hotels. Also, guests are expecting flexible change rules and also flexible cancellation policies. So now that you see that there is a short booking window, of course, guests are now booking in a very last minute. In the past was like 0 to 28 days. Now they're really booking like up to 7 days. They expect to have like more flexible change rules. So this is also one of what guests are expecting from the hotels. Other things that's a trend is guests are expecting more touchless experience. So now that guests have everything in the mobile, they can also book reservation. They can go and request any kind of service in the room with the mobile. They are expecting more touchless experience, of course, to also improve the service that hotel can provide. Talking about travel restrictions, in April 2020, 96% of destinations had travel restrictions. So we saw at that time, as I said, hotels had capacity restrictions implemented by the governments. They have border closures. A lot of countries just close the borders and not allow international travelers to come in. Airlines reduce the schedules and also cancel a lot of flights. So this is also impacting a lot in the way that travelers could go and of course in travel. Other countries establish quarantine. So if you want to go to a destination, you have to stay like 14 days in a hotel. And I have some cases, for example, my sister, she was living in New Zealand at that time, and New Zealand closed the borders for over 1 year, and she would like to come back home, and she could not leave, New Zealand. And when she could, come back home, she needs to stay like 14 days in a hotel, and so this is really impact how travelers, could travel abroad. And just take an example now. Of course, the travel restrictions are now flexible, but we are still facing, some restrictions. I traveled last week to US. Have like a company meeting, and to come back to Brazil, I have to have my proof of vaccine. I have to have like a COVID test 24 hours, before the flight, before departure to Brazil. Fill up a healthy form, and if I have any symptoms of COVID, I have to stay like 14 days in quarantine. So, of course, rules are more flexible now, but we are still, seeing that some destinations are still, asking and having some restrictions. And then we have seasonality shifts. And good things here, we have to think about not only in terms of revenue, but also thinking about the operations. As hotels now can have a lot of data, they can use this in a proactive way. They have all of the, information, and there's, of course, some factors can influence, the seasonality, like weather, economic conditions, local events. But if hotels, start using data, and shift focus from only revenue to a more holistic view of, operational approach, they can reduce costs and also increase the revenue. So of course they can, be more proactively, and work in a way that can get better results if they can, forecast, better how the losses will be. Staff shortage. I think now one of the things that needs to be prioritized by the hotels is staff retention. Of course, when the pandemic, hit the world, a lot of employees, left the industry. Of course, there's a lot of layoffs, and now that numbers are starting to, recover, the big problem of the hotels is to hire, people. There is a study of Forbes Travel that 92% of the hotels, face problems to, hire, employees. And of course, as you have, like increasing demand, and of course, increased number of travels, more people, are going to the hotels. You have to have, employees, have to have, people to attend these guests. And of course, they are expecting, good services. And as I said, one of the big problems today is to have like good employees. And of course, one of the priority of the hotels needs to be like the staff retention. Then some numbers about the Caribbean. Like we have 68%, decrease in international arrivals in 2020. So of course, this is a huge impact, in the industry. Only in the Caribbean, 700,000 jobs lost, in travel and tourism in 2020. Worldwide, we have over 64 million, people that lost the jobs. So it's a huge number. 9% of hotels opened by mid 2021. This is good news that markets start to recover. And vaccine rollout had positive impact, of course, with the vaccination. And of course, guests are now allowed to travel again. This also, of course, will also impact positively in the numbers. International restrictions were banned in the Caribbean, benefit from U.S. travelers in 2021. And as we know, U.S. travelers, they play a very important role in the Caribbean in the travel industry. So as now there is no more restriction for these travelers, of course, numbers from this market is also it's very important. Just as a comparison, we have September 29, an occupancy of 65%, an ADR of 222, and a RevPAR of 144. September 21, and occupancy level, it was 40%. The ADR 251, and the RevPAR 93. If you take numbers for last month, February, the occupancy levels was 60%. The ADR was 317, and the RevPAR is 199. Of course, this is an average, numbers for occupancy, ADR, and RevPAR. We have, different numbers for, different markets, of course. But this is just to have an idea, how we are progressing, after the pandemic. Then we have, here the impact of COVID and restrictions. So in this slide, we can see, the correlation between registrations and bookings, and we can see in the red line, restrictions, and the blue line is the bookings. And we can see how it, goes from December 2020, and then we have in the second May 2021, and then November 2021. So this is, how we can see here, and comparing the impact of COVID and the restrictions. Okay, next. The reservations trends. same thing. We have the graph showing how was the reservations trend from December 2020. Then we go to see the numbers for May 2021 and how it progressed to November 2021. So we can see that the curve of the impact. Also, we can see that the Omicron has a huge impact in global, but not the big impact in the Caribbean. Okay, next. Then we have the channel trends. We broke it in differentiation of booking engines. That there's more direct bookings. A channel manager, of course, bring the information from the OTAs and the GDS, which implicates of course in business bookings. We have both information for global and the Caribbean. So same thing, how it was before pandemics and during the pandemics, of course, how these numbers are at now. By this month of November 2021.
I think what's great, I love this slide because if we're looking specific to the Caribbean, the impact from booking engine, way higher than it is on average globally. So really important to really focus on driving that direct stuff, all those direct bookings. So we'll talk a little more in a bit about how to do that.
Well, now what the learnings that emerged from 2021. Well, first one, shortening of booking windows. Of course, this is one of the big changes in the industries. As I mentioned before, travelers today are booking like really last minute. Before it was like 28 days. In the resorts, the days even more. But now they're really booking like last minute. One of the advantages of this, of course, is that guests are willing to pay more money. They're booking last minute. But of course, hotels need to establish like a way that can bring this guest. Of course, do like the right approach, and of course, do a strategy to bring this guest. Other trend that emerges in new travel segments. We can talk about leisure and workation, and it's funny because. And when having the past, like, travelers that go for business, go straight for the business, go to attend the meeting, and then come back home. Now guests want also to join, and of course spend some time, in the destination. If, for example, if I'm going to the Caribbean, to attend a meeting, of course I'm going to, get at least more 3-4 days, that I can just, spend time, in the destination. Of course, to enjoy, the beach, to also go around, make some, tours. And this is what's happening now. Guests are also using the time not only for business, also using for leisure. This is very, very, very good. And workation, what happened in the past, like we call digital nomads. Now it's very common that after almost 2 years, that people are working from home. They have the possibility that they can see they can work from anywhere. If you have like a good internet, you can just, instead of be stuck in home, you can just take a plane, go to the Bahamas, or maybe you can go to Asia, whatever, and you can work remotely. So this is what's happening, that employees are now also working, not only in home office, but also are working, in their travel destinations. So this can also be very interesting, and it's a way that you can also attract these kind of travelers. Then the increased importance of digitalization technology, and this is very important to mention that hotels can, with digitalization, reduce the amount of work, of course, optimize operations, and of course, optimizing operations, they can have better results. And as I mentioned before, guests have everything in the mobile. If guests just want to make a reservation, do like the early check-in, they can, after they go to the hotel, they do check-in, they can go, and order meals in the room. So everything now to facilitate, the guest experience. And digitalization can also be a very good way you exceed guest expectation. Well, technology, and if you talk about technologies, is a vast, area that you can talk, because there is a lot of, technologies that can help hotels to improve in operations. Just some examples. You can, for example, use a CRM. You can collect all the guest data, and using the guest data, of course, you can offer them like better experiences. You can understand, what the guests are looking for, and offer like the best, value stay for them. So this is one of the solutions. Other, if you work, for example, with the RMS solution, you can just also, help your sales team, and of course, the hotel to improve, the revenue using like a solution like an RMS. You can predict, you have the information from the competition, you have like the rates recommendations. So this also can help a lot of hotels, to increase the revenue. And you can also have interaction with the guests. Today, even before, during the stay, and after the stay. Before the stay, you can understand what are the guest preferences. And when guests are in the hotel, you can also contact guests, to understand how is the stay, if everything is good. If there is anything that you can do to improve, the guest experience at the hotel. And of course, after the stay, you can do, kind of research, and send guest surveys, and to understand how you can improve, the service that you can offer to your guests. So this is basically what you can definitely, work with digitalization and also technology, in the hotels. Other important, thing that we can, talk here is the power of non-revenue. Of course, hotels can now also explore, opportunities to maximize, revenue, and we have like, of course, basics like food and beverage. You have the spa. You can also try to bring, more events to the hotel. But there is some, other, possibilities that you can think about. For example, there is a hotel in Argentina that for reservations with over more than 5 days, they offer like wine tasting in one winery, close to the hotel, with a free dinner. So this make the hotel increase, the numbers during the low season in up to 60%. So shows how you can think, creativity, and be creative to, of course, offer something different, for the guests. Staffing, as I mentioned before, one of the major challenges for hotels now is the retention, and not only retention, but also put the collaboration, for the staff. During the pandemics, we saw that people that were working at the hotels, need to do everything. If you call, talk with the GM was at the restaurant, helping the people, during the lunchtime, and then this is something that just happened during the pandemics. But of course, this experience brought hotels to a different level of how to keep and retain the staff. Of course, all other staff need to be trained to give like the best experience to the guests. And when you train the staff, of course, how to serve better the guests. Also, you can train them to be more proactive in terms of collaboration. So this is also can be very important to have your staff happy. If you have a staff happy, you can also make them do better service to your guests. Then we have first party data is paramount. Of course, here, as we have data is very, very important, for hotels. Now everybody, can think about that data is the new gold. So any information that you have, from your guest is very useful. You have to use this information, not only, collect the data, but also make the analysis of the data. And then this will become base for, your future, business with the guests. Of course, types like loyalty. And this is, we also going to talk, in future, in next slides, but also use, the data to help your hotel to understand, the guest preferences.
Okay. So driving occupancy and non-revenue. So Alex had touched on this. So we wanted to just sort of walk through a couple of examples of things that our clients have been using, things that we've seen in the industry. So Alex, you had touched on sort of, I'll start with promoting workation, right? We see that a lot. So really making sure that guests know that you have Wi-Fi, work in paradise, who doesn't want to work on the beach? All of those things. So really bringing the sort of business aspect, but also mixing obviously beautiful scenery. That's really important for people who want the reassurance that they're not going to arrive at the beach and not be able to get in touch with anyone that they work with. So Wi-Fi, sort of a nice business center, all of those aspects, whereas previously would not have been anything that would have been front and center for these audiences, now definitely is something that we should be talking about. Thinking about special sort of off season, we joke that seasonality is dead. So I sort of smile when I say off season, with occupancy rates and ADRs looking like they are as of February. I'm sure a lot of you guys on the webinar right now are hopefully smiling with your ADRs. And don't necessarily need to discount. So things like save 40%, where you used to have to drive those in the off season, not really something we'd recommend, and hopefully not something that you guys are doing, but thinking about ways of driving longer stays, driving offers around experience. We see this time and time again in the past couple of months, right? Things change very quickly these days. Where experiences, Alex mentioned wine tasting. I have heard it, repeatedly where people are going, and the thing that causes them to choose one hotel over another is they had this really great local wine tasting, bourbon tasting, art tour, something that connects them to the local experience. And so putting those experiential offers front and center. Those are the things that really speak to travelers now who have been starved for travel for all of these months and don't just want to sort of go and be somewhere beautiful, although that's definitely nice, but they really want to connect with the local environment that they're going into. And then events and weddings. We did have a company meeting last week, so we as Sundyne have contributed to group bookings globally, so you're welcome. But events and weddings are big, right? Lots of people have not been able to get married. So making sure that if those are assets that the property has, we want to be talking about them and to the right audiences.
Yeah, and one of the things that I also would mention here, Tina, is that it's good for hotels that wants to have more business, with events and weddings. As you mentioned, there's a lot of people that could not get married during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Events were canceled as well. So there is some tips that is very good to mention here. One, if you have like an event space, you can space for a wedding, you can promote it in your website. Now highlight that you have this event space and put it in a beautiful way in your website. And then you can also optimize, of course, to be found in search engines. And then Tina can also talk later about this, but put like an SEO strategy, how we can optimize to be found on search engines for be a hotel that can attend events and weddings. You can also showcase your events on social media. This is something that also very interesting, because it's a lot of travelers I know that want to get married. Maybe you can think to go to the Caribbean, make like a private party, inviting people. Can go to social media and take a look, and if you showcase your past events on social media, you definitely can also have a chance to have this guests to book the event at your hotel. Yeah, other important thing is get on Instagram and Pinterest that also are now a very important channel to promote the events.
Absolutely. I think there's a couple of other things we wanted to just call out here. So customizable packages, certainly important when everyone is expecting flexibility, key there. I think the other big trends that everyone is aware of, right? Things like being dog friendly. Maybe not as important when people are flying as when people are driving from one destination to another, but it is probably the next thing where people are now starting to fly more routinely with their pets. I do see it quite frequently. And if there are those amenities, I think those are things that make people feel really welcomed. Obviously, childcare, especially when we're talking about things like workation, utilizing sort of unused common space. If there's other ways that, there's sort of an event space that isn't being used, or previously smaller conference rooms, thinking about leveraging some of those spaces differently. I sort of always think about, a certain client that set up shop for some local artisans to sort of display what they were doing. That's such an amazing connection for people who want to feel like when they're traveling somewhere, they're really immersed in local culture. And there's an aspect of sustainability. They want to be able to see what that is specific to that town, to that country. And there's a lot that, of course, at a property level, you're able to do for the local economy. So all of those things, and sort of just rounding out with, if there are any local offers, thinking about, not necessarily chain restaurants, local places, local tours, local coffee places, just ways for the guests to arrive and feel like, okay, I may not have ever been here before, but I have these 4 places that are for me, that are customized for me, and then I have offers and I'm incentivized to go. Okay, so I'm going to go through digital marketing tactics to drive revenue. So there's a lot here, and I can talk about this for hours, so I won't bore you guys, but these are the key things that we think about when we're talking about driving revenue. We really need to identify our target audiences. There were such rapid changes in the past 2 years with just adoption of digital technologies. Alex had talked about the importance of investing in technology at the hotels, but everywhere. I never would have thought to go into a restaurant and use my phone to read a menu. And that is a common thing that people do now. It's expected that you can scan a QR code and read a menu. So just thinking about how digital plays part in our lives, obviously digital behavior has changed. What channels people are using, how they are leveraging being online. We want to make sure that we're improving efficiencies for things that have worked in the past. We want to tailor creative for where people are in the journey. If they're on Pinterest, they want to see weddings. If they are reading an article about best places to stay in Punta Cana, they want ads that are for properties that are in that destination. Invest in building tools for first-party data. Really important. We talk about CRMs, we talk about CDPs. We want to make sure that when we are collecting data that it is actionable. We're not just sort of storing it someplace in a dark, dusty corner, but certainly investing in the tools that allow us to use that data. And finally, being present in feeder markets, those may have changed. They certainly changed throughout the course of the past 2 years, but are your feeder markets now the same as they were in 2019? So really trying to take a look at that and understanding if you are spending money on media, making sure that you're spending it in places where now you're seeing the majority of your guests coming from. So sort of age-old question here. Where should you put your investment, or what percent of your time or money? Media or marketing? And both are really important. Media, we're going to talk a little bit about paid search, meta search, display, and paid social. And on the marketing side, while not paid tactics, there's certainly a big investment in terms of time. So we think about it that way. I will start with SEO and organic social. A few things to just think about here, really making sure that technically things are sound. Alex mentioned, really the importance of being able to be found when people are searching for event spaces or weddings or some of those amenities that maybe previously weren't front and center for different hotels, but now really need to be. Looking at those trends and building content around it. I think about, hotels where you maybe have to shift things a bit between winter, colder months somewhat, and maybe some activities in the summer, or content around new activities. Maybe there is, something to be said for a local tour, and you want to build content around that on the site. Think about those things in terms of SEO. And then having good SEO complements what you're doing on the paid side. Organic social, huge amount of work and time investment, I know, on the property side, but really making sure that you're owning your branded social presence. Don't feel like it's necessary to be on every single platform, but really picking some and making sure that you are owning those and putting your best foot forward in terms of property, beautiful aesthetic, showing, people doing different things on property, or, engaging in different ways, obviously sharing content from people who have stayed. And then just making sure, specific to Instagram and some of those platforms, that you're thinking about your hashtag strategy so that even if people aren't following your pages or seeing your content that way, it will still start to appear for ways that people are thinking about travel. Paid search. So really the most important thing here, own your brand terms and control your messaging. That is really important. You don't want OTAs bidding on your terms and driving people away when they're this close to booking, which is really what we're seeing when someone is seeking out the property name. Save a little bit of time here and leverage some of the automation features within the platform. That will help, because Google and other platforms reward their own algorithms, and so they will like you more if you leverage their automation features. And then if you can, budget allowing, think about what we call destination terms. So people looking for, not necessarily beach resorts, that's super broad, but maybe, 4-star hotels in Punta Cana. So you're sort of taking it a few steps down the consideration set, and be specific with those keywords as a way of balancing budget. And test, learn, rinse, and repeat. It's really an ongoing labor of love, and making sure that you're looking at performance and you're making changes accordingly. Meta. For anyone who does not know what Meta is, it's really a way for people to go and compare prices when they are pretty close to actually making a booking. And 85% of this is really controlled by these 5: Google, Kayak, Trivago, TripAdvisor, and Bing. Really the importance here, we saw in the Caribbean market specifically, and in one of the earlier slides, that Booking Engine is driving the majority of reservations at a disproportionate rate to global, which is really great. So Meta is a key piece here to making sure that you're reducing your reliance on OTAs and you are capturing people who are looking to drive direct. And added bonus, I think equally important, is that you're able to capture that guest as we prepare for losing cookies, right? In a cookieless world, guest data, it's gold. And so we definitely want them to be driving direct so that we get the booking and we get the guest. Paid social, we know that people are on social. Again, we can spend time, I'm sure there are questions about measurement in the wake of some of the iOS changes, but what I talk to a lot of clients about is, yes, measurement has changed. We're not seeing some of the same amount of conversions and revenue data, but we know people are on social. We know that's where the audience is, and we know that's where they get inspired. And so making sure that you are creating content that, taps into that aspiration, into that inspiration. Really understand your audience, right? Or if you are paying to put content in front of a wedding audience, make sure that it's wedding content. Same thing for, getting in front of people who are potentially looking to book a workation. Really making sure you're featuring some of those Wi-Fi and business aspects. And then decide on your KPI. If you decide on, we're going to look at click-through rate, we're going to look at engagement rate, we're going to look at some of these other metrics, stick with that, pick a call to action that aligns. And then similar to what we said with search is test, learn, rinse, and repeat. For display, think about display as sort of the upper funnel cherry on top when you have the rest of your media going in a great place. This is where we're able to sort of drive awareness, get in front of users who we see a ton of demand, but being able to break through, and then designing for user experience, right? Remember that when you're on your phone and someone sees a banner, I know that a lot of people want to get a lot of information into those very small banners, and it always looks good when you're looking at the bigger version, but remember that it does appear quite small. So make sure that you're thinking about that in terms of picking a display element. These are a few examples of what we're talking about when we talk about display. The example on the right is someone who's looking at travel content and making sure that we are serving accordingly. That's where the ad would appear. On the left, an example of paid social content that has performed particularly well. Really just looking at, including an offer and making sure that the imagery is aspirational. Who doesn't want to sit and look at that view? And so in the interest of time, we're going to sort of go through this a little bit quickly. I want to leave time for questions, but when we talk about driving email and web conversions, we really want to go beyond just transactionals. We want to build a relationship and tell a story. There were a lot of amazing things that were done during COVID where hotels their hotels weren't open and guests couldn't book, but they had to build a relationship. They had to talk about aspects on property that were meaningful, that were, really the selling points. Every single hotel has a story. And so being able to communicate that through email is important, right? These are your primary past guests, your loyal guests. And so being able to continue to think about email marketing in that way. Being able to personalize that, leveraging data and timing. When are you serving? When are you delivering these emails? When are you getting in front of them? What is your cadence? The next part of that is making sure that you are optimizing that engagement. And we do want to be driving bookings, right? It's important to build the relationship, but the goal is obviously at the end of the day to build loyalty and drive revenue. So continuing to test into personalization, being able to access your data and use it. Think about subject lines. I think testing is really important. I sort of joke because I was saying to Alex that I think it's always a little weird when I see email subject lines that say Tina, comma, blah, 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 blah. So, but for someone else, that may be what they need to click on it. And so testing and seeing what resonates with the audience is really important. And then of course, use the design that reflects the beauty of the property. Web navigation. In an era where we really need to drive direct bookings, the site is really, sort of your second lobby, if you will. You want people to get to the website, be able to understand the aesthetic and the property, and be able to get to the check-in desk, right? They want same concept on a website. They need to be able to get to where they want to go clearly and cleanly. And so keep your navigation simple. Make sure that the booking path is not cluttered with a lot of choices. Optimize for mobile. We're seeing more and more that conversions are coming from mobile, whereas they have always been predominantly from desktop. Obviously a lot of looking on mobile, but booking on desktop. And we're really seeing that change in the past, say, 18 months. So making sure that you're optimizing for mobile, and then aesthetic reflect the hotel. And then finally, a couple of sort of things that we're seeing, going to the next step of personalizing the experience. And so this is, sort of a crawl, walk, run. We think about sort of crawling and running here, walking and running. Sorry, got the analogy mixed up. But if we are able to sort of have someone land on the website and recognize who they are, make sure that it's personal. If they have eaten at a restaurant before and they're coming back to the website, give them a dining credit. If you've seen them on the website before, but they haven't booked, create a sense of urgency, give them a specific offer, things like that. So there's endless things that can be personalized based on either past guest data or past website visit data and what they were looking at. And so really making sure you're thinking through customization for the user is going to drive more conversions and really build loyalty at the end of the day, which is what we want to be doing. So when we think about loyalty here, right, so gaining a new client, new customer, new guest, anywhere from 5 to 8 times more versus retaining a past guest. And so really making sure that you're crafting the retention strategy towards these guests that are coming multiple times. And this is both for independents, right? It's important, that's even more important, but also true for management companies and for brands where you want them to stay within that family of hotels. And then in terms of really putting together your ultimate loyalty strategy, we just included a few things to think about here. Really making sure that you understand what loyal guest means. Is it someone who stayed twice, or is it someone who stayed 10 times? So putting a definition there, making sure that you have that CRM, that data repository to update profiles and store that information. Train staff, which I know is hard. We live it every day these days with this crazy market, but making sure that you're training your staff to differentiate between a loyal guest, what are they going to do in different situations. Cultivate the surprise factor. We sort of mentioned a customized list of restaurants or places that they can go when they arrive at the hotel. Like that's such an awesome, warm, fuzzy feeling in your tummy kind of thing, which really helps increase loyalty. Consider different subscriptions, and then look outside the hotel at other ways of building that experience. So I know that was a lot. I think Vanessa, I got it sort of just to the line there. So we have a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, certainly. That's a lot of data to digest. So I'm going to dive into, we already have 2 questions, and I would like to remind the audience that you're welcome to post your questions on the Q&A. First question we have is, in the Caribbean, our off-season is also peak hurricane season. Any worry-free value-added ideas?
I mean, Alex, you can jump in here too. I think we talk about cancellation and those sorts of flexible booking options almost as sort of a value add that really, if there's a hurricane coming, there's not much, and someone can't get to the property, there's not much else you can do. If it is just sort of bad weather season, I think there's a really big opportunity to think about, what can you develop on property to make it a destination that even when it's raining, there's still something to do. I know in the past, you sort of go to a more of a resort or a beach destination, and the rainy days are the worst because everyone's stuck inside. But in thinking about other ways that the guests can interact, I'm an art person, so to me, having some kind of arts and crafts on property or a wine tasting, those are sorts of things that make people feel more comfortable booking because they have something to do.
Yes, I agree with Tina. Of course, I know that the hurricane season in the Caribbean goes from August to beginning of October, and of course now during this period of I think the best thing is work with flexibility. Allow guests to book, and if they would like to cancel or change their, we have no extra cost for that. And as Tina mentioned, I think it's very important also to some special events that can bring extra experience for the guests. Like I mentioned, like the Argentina winery just put like a wine tasting for a free dinner. Something that can also think for the Caribbean properties to do something similar. Bring some different experience for the guest.
Definitely. Next question is, a lot of our hotels are not cookie cutter hotels and do not offer standard hotel rooms like the large branded hotels. How can these unique small boutique hotels realize more direct online bookings, but also ensure that first-time guests are actually booking a room that meets their expectations?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That is a long answer. So I would actually say that it's probably also worth a follow-up, but really quickly, I think we think about video, right? When we talk about how digital behavior has shifted, and video has become so commonplace. There's so much more inventory, and so many more people are turning to video in all aspects of their lives, and they expect that when they go to a website to look at a hotel. So thinking about ways of embedding 360 tours or different ways of showcasing the room so that there isn't a surprise when someone comes and it's not quite the suite that they had imagined. I think that's really important. It sort of solves two problems. One of making your website an extension of your hotel, and then also helping to sort of close that gap for arrival on property.
Yeah, I agree with Tina. And I think one of the things that's good also mention here is that if the hotel wants to include like a video in the website, it needs to do something like more professional, not be like a mature video. So invest money on that. Also can help the hotel just to when guest arrives in the hotel, see, okay, this is what exactly I booked. So will not have any kind of problem. So invest a little bit of money on like have a professional video also I think can help.
Yeah, I would also highlight that communication is critical, and I think more from the pandemic, people are doing more research and they're doing their own evaluation as they are looking. So the website needs to have all of the information available, including protocols or some changes that could be impacted while the guest is during, or may impact the experience, be it good or nothing. Managing expectations, being able to say, hey, now our property has the ability of our spa is open, or things like that, particularly with guests that are returning that may have attended while there were some activities that were not available. So communication certainly is key. Another question is, everybody is talking about using first-party data. What about using third-party data?
Well, so third-party cookies are going away. And so when we think about third-party data, we want to make sure that we're talking about the right thing. So we still can leverage data from third-party providers, but it really comes down to, from a media standpoint, from being able to target, the biggest impact is really going to be in sort of the display and programmatic space. We talk a lot about first-party data because of all of the privacy changes and increasing restrictions with leveraging and people sharing data. And so some of those third-party data, whether or not you can still leverage them, are maybe not as accurate as they once were. And so the gold standard now is really understanding your guest and gathering first-party data as much as possible. And I will sort of maybe even correct myself. Guest data is very important, but there's other ways of collecting first-party data. It's not just people who have stayed. It's information that you can, sort of collect through your social profiles, information that you can have people share on property at any of the F&Bs or any of the ancillary lines of business that are available. So there's other ways of gathering data about potential guests as well as past guests that we want to focus on.
Okay. And another question. Oh, sorry, Alex.
No, I agree with Tina. Yeah, definitely. And as you know, data is the new gold. So hotels that can understand and know how to use data, can really have increased results, get better experience for the guests. And I agree 100% with Tina.
Last question, how effective do you think review forums are to generate interest? Thinking of TripAdvisor or OTA feedback forums, these sites have images and customer testimonials.
Importance for the hotel or value to potential guests?
That's a good question. Maybe let's answer it from both.
So I think any information that you can have that can be put online, right, is important for guests who are looking, right? Vanessa, you mentioned research. They're doing a ton of research. And so the more information that can be shared about experiences or information that hotels are putting on about the property, I will say is better. It's really important also when you're thinking about getting experience, like data, reviews and those kinds of testimonial submissions, that you use it as a way of fixing the bad, addressing the bad, and using it to turn that around, right? Because there's definitely going to be those times. There's definitely going to be people who have, for one reason or another, did not have the greatest day of their lives. And so using this as a way of identifying those things, addressing them proactively, like reaching out, I think actually is another way to differentiate the property.
Yeah, just take an example. If you have like a guest that go like search a property in some destination and see that a property is answering all the bad reviews, for example, and they're just deciding which property I'm going to book, and this can make a big difference. This is why hotels need to be very professional when they manage the reputation on the social media. So if hotel really make a good work, of course the chance of have a guest book they instead of booking the competition is very big, and they have some numbers, like if the hotel increase 1 point in the one of the channels like TripAdvisor, for example, they can increase rates in 11% without changing in the occupancy. So this is huge, this is big, so this is why hotels really need to focus in answer correctly the guest reviews, doing a very proactive way, not do like standard answers that guests really can be upset with that. The best thing is if you can just really take serious in how to you manage a reputation management, you can definitely have better results for your property.
Perfect. Well, we've reached a allotted time for our discussion today. We could be talking about this for ages and ages, but we hope that the information that was presented by our CHTA members and Dine has been helpful and gave our audience some very insightful tools and ideas of what they need to be looking into as they prepare for the off season. Although we know that with seasonality changing, we could be having a very hectic season for throughout the rest of the year. Tina and Alex, thank you so much for joining. Claire, if you can bring our last slide up, we want to remind you to please engage and connect with CHTA in our various social media channels. Also, if you have any questions or we can be of any assistance, if you're looking to renew and your dues or join CHTA, please contact us at membership@caribbeanhotelandtourism.com, and there will be a survey with you at the end of the session when the screen closes. We ask that you please share your feedback with us. We want to thank you again for joining us this afternoon and taking some time to learn a little bit and understand what are some of the strategies that you can incorporate into your strategies moving forward. And with that, I bid you good afternoon, and we'll see you in our next event next week, Rebuilding Inter-Caribbean Travel. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.